Hi there, my name's Sibelius and this is my presentation for my essay topic, which is going to be exploring extended and distributed cognition in virtual assistant technology. Basically, the underlying thesis will be that virtual assistants are our best yet example of extended and distributed mind, not only for augmenting biological brains, but they're certainly going to outdo them in many ways too. So extended mind is the idea that cognition can sometimes go beyond the biological brain, using various things in the environment or the environment itself to augment or aid or amplify cognitive processes. Distributed cognition, on the other hand, is a related topic. Actually, we'll get the assistant to see what she can tell us about it. What is distributed cognition?
According to EduTech Wiki, Université de Genève, distributed cognition refers to a process in which cognitive resources are shared socially in order to extend individual cognitive resources or to accomplish something that an individual agent cannot achieve alone.
Well, that was pretty quick, but that'll do nicely. Let's move on to what is a virtual assistant. For those of you who don't know, computer guys would call it a disembodied conversational agent that you interact with by voice. They're now pretty much everywhere. You've probably got one in your pocket right now on your phone, your smartwatch maybe, in your car, with your GPS system. Google Home and Amazon Echo are new technologies that have come out recently, which basically puts it in your home. You can interact with just by saying out loud, turn the lights off, or whatever, ask it questions, that sort of thing. Sometimes these virtual assistants are referred to as knowledge navigators, functioning like an other mind. I'll give you a quick rundown of some of the things it can do. Something I use it for in the morning is a daily briefing. It can tell you, what you need to do that day, give you the weather, that sort of thing. Can give you throughout the day reminders of every conceivable type, from setting alarms to someone's birthday. It'll track everywhere you go, get to know your movements, track everything you eat if you give it the right information. It can tell you what's ahead, not just geographically, but if you're headed to Westfield, it can tell you what shops are going to be available there. Communication, obviously, it communicates not only with you but via your technology. So it can send text messages to people, post to various social media and things like that. It's by no means deaf, dumb and blind. It can, for example, that Google Home can listen to what you're watching on television and give you information about what you're listening to. All of this leads to getting to know you better and better, and it'll become more accurate. As mentioned before, you can actually physically interact with the world in the sense that whatever's accessible to it electronically, it can control, so lights and things like that, home, television, whatnot. And if you're in California, you'll be driving your car soon enough too. Also, it can actively solve problems, so just to prove that you can throw away your calculators and encyclopedias that you're lugging around with you, let's try a couple. What's 10 times 5 times 12 times 8?
10 by 5 by 12 by 8 is 4,800.
Thank you. What's the biggest city in Australia?
Australia's largest city is Sydney.
There you go. So they're pretty simple examples. You can ask more complicated things, but just to give you an idea, we should look quickly at how the virtual assistant meet the conditions that are usually outlined in the literature, such as Clark and Chalmers' trust and glue conditions. These usually consist of the constancy, availability without difficulty, automatically endorsing it, and endorsed at some point in the past. So we'll go over each one with relation to the virtual assistant. So the first one is constancy. The virtual assistant is always available. It's more readily available, certainly, than a notebook, and just about as readily as a voice inside your head. I use the example of Obi, who's a more technologically advanced or technologically savvy friend of Otto's, if you like. He's just bought himself a Bluetooth earpiece, put it in his ear, and he's got his virtual assistant on him at all times. Even though this is fictional, it's certainly plausible in today's technology. You could certainly have this going right now. Most of you, as I said before, have already got the virtual assistant in their pocket. You could probably buy a Bluetooth earpiece down the shop right now and get that happening. Availability is another one. Clark mentioned something called decoupling, which we might worry about with his example Otto. Otto can't use his notebook in the dark or in the shower. Obi, on the other hand, his virtual assistant is available wherever he can be heard, wherever his voice can be heard. So even when he's sleeping, Obi's virtual assistant is monitoring his sleep, whereas Otto's notebook is just laying next to his bed. There's a little quote here from Google. The assistant is an ambient experience that will work seamlessly across devices and contexts. So you can summon Google's help no matter where you are or what the context. That's true, no doubt, assuming you've got the technology and the internet available. It's probably worth noting, and of course that's culture and wealth dependent. You've got to have access to those things for this to work. Trust and endorsement. I guess unlike biological memory, which we trust from the beginning, and we've automatically endorsed, the virtual assistant you probably won't trust first up to give you accurate directions or to remind you to take your tablets or whatever, but over time I think endorsement will come as the virtual assistant gets to know you better and you get better at using it, and it proves itself over time. So I think endorsement will come eventually. It will be earned, and eventually through some ways you will see that the virtual assistance is superior to the biological brain. You can ask it to search specific dictionaries and encyclopedias for information that you yourself would endorse more than your own memory. Clark in cognitive technology also mentions the idea of dovetailing. He says, if we remove the external component, the system's behavioral competence will drop, just as it would if we remove part of its brain. And this is accurate, I think, in terms of the virtual assistant. Perhaps not both ways, though. If I'm taken out of the equation, the virtual assistant is not going to suffer any competence drop, but if it is taken out of the loop that I've created with it, certainly my competence is going to drop. In the literature also there's a lot of mention of memory, so I'll just go over briefly a couple of memory systems and how it relates to the virtual assistant. Retrospective, memory of the past. Two aspects of that, semantic and procedural. Semantic is the obvious one that the virtual assistant excels at. Clearly it's very good at remembering facts and things like that. Procedural memory is a memory that's usually integrated with our motor skills, how we actually do things, how we proceed. And of course the virtual assistant's not going to remember how to ride a bike for you, but perhaps it could tell you how to ride your bike, at least linguistically. And it certainly is going to be a lot more reliable in terms of getting you to geographical locations that are unknown to you. So in this sense, it's going to be superior in many ways. Prospective memory, on the other hand, is memory for future events. Which sounds a bit odd, but it's basically what we use to remember to do things in the future. It's usually broken up into time-based and event-based. Virtual assistants will remind you to perform certain actions, either one-offs or repeatedly. Take your tablets every day at 2 p.m., for example. It's very good at that. Event-based, it's also quite good at. Event-based memory is usually defined as memory that requires some sort of environmental cue for you to take action. So the virtual assistant will be able to do that in the sense that it could turn your phone on silent when you enter the church, for example. Turn your phone on silent at a certain time at night and then back to sound at a certain time in the morning. It's really quite good and quite accurate. Another interesting aspect is the autobiographical memory. So this is the memory that forms our sense of self. It's usually about important or notable events in our lives. The virtual assistant's quite good at this and getting better all the time. It will integrate things like location data with the photo and the video. It'll put it together for you in a nice little folder entitled Holidays, and this will overall give you a much more accurate record than your biological memory is ever going to give you. And just in comparison to, say, a notebook or a journal, that's obviously in many ways inferior. But more importantly, a point I'd like to make is that it is passive. The kind of technology we're talking about, virtual assistants, is fundamentally different to things like pen and paper and calculators and file effects, as they mention in the literature, which are all passive implements that we have to act upon. They don't do anything. The virtual assistant is entirely different in that it's active. It's getting to know who you are, what you're interested in. It's getting to know you and improving the relationship between you and it all the time. Notebooks and calculators and things, they're not going to be able to remind you to do something at a certain time in a certain place. And this is a crucial distinction, I think. So beyond a mere extension, the other thing is collective intelligence, an idea discussed by Halpern and others. Under the heading of this collective intelligence, we have the idea of distributed cognition amongst members and what Wegener calls transactive memory. And this consists of information stored in so each individual's memory combined with a larger meta-memory which contains the information of all the members of the team, of a group. So in a group, group members can learn who the knowledge experts are. This knowledge is distributed amongst the members, and they'll know how to access that expertise through communicative process. Crucially, this transactive memory system can provide group members with more and better knowledge than an individual could access on their own. This is really quite relevant to virtual assistants, though it's not mentioned anywhere in the literature. But obviously the virtual assistant has direct access to, and therefore you have direct access to the greatest collective intelligence in history, which is the World Wide Web. And importantly, this is accessed in real time. So the user, the agent, can alter his or her behavior in response to this information in real time, very much like, obviously probably not as quick, but very much like the information in the biological brain and the information that circulates in a group, the distributed and collective intelligence of a group. Certainly, I don't want to flog a dead horse when it comes to analogies, but aliens visiting Earth certainly comes to mind here, in the sense that I'm not sure that they'd be real interested in being taken to your leader, and the information contained in one individual's brain. It's not going to be very useful to them. Probably more realistically, they're going to just grab somebody's iPhone and speak to the collective intelligence through the virtual assistant. Whether that virtual assistant can be counted as a representative of the human race is another question, but just about out of time, so I'll probably leave it there. I'll just sum it up for you. Virtual assistants meet and exceed the criteria that's required for something to be considered an epistemic artifact of extended cognition. It's ubiquitous, it's accessible, it's trustworthy, it's not subject to the environment in the same way things like Otto's notebook, which we mentioned, it doesn't work in the shower. Crucial difference, I suppose, is that it only requires language, and language is something that's fundamental to humans. It will develop in any human, any normal development of human, regardless, and it doesn't require any special expertise like reading and writing does. In terms of memory that we looked at, it's certainly more permanent, more reliable. It's multimodal, existing on many dimensions at once. Can give you, just like your biological mind can, sound and visual and location-wise, all obviously more accurate than the biological brain can. And crucially, that we pointed out that it's active, it's interactive, it's not passive, like many artifacts claim to be, or function as at least, but are not. The virtual assistant is more distributed and more extended than anything that's gone before, and comes closer than everything before to a real-time collective intelligence, where its whole is certainly greater than the sum of its parts, certainly greater than the sum of its users. So those are some of the basic underlying ideas I'd like to explore in my thesis for the virtual assistant. Is our best example yet of extended and distributed mind, and I would certainly appreciate any comments, guidance in the iLearn. I'll post it up there tonight. I hope I've kept it under 20 minutes. And thank you very much for taking the time to